Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 32, another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. And yes, I'm still in a room full of moving boxes and it still smells of cat wee, but there you go. Let's crack on. First one is Nissan's Cool Paint, and it literally is cool paint. It makes your car cooler, 10 degrees cooler, as you can see here in this example. It has metamaterials in it, and it does two things. One is it bounces back the infrared, which is the heaty bit, and it also generates an electrical field, which then reverberates the energy back into space, so therefore it goes out of the atmosphere and it's all a good thing. So this is clearly trying to reduce the energy that your car uses and also make it a lot nicer to be in a car. Therefore you don't need your aircon on, which is going to take power from your car, which is good. So therefore, that's a good thing. More cars need that. This is actually Honeybee Robotics, and they've got some money from DARPA, who are basically the research people in the defense research and space people in America. And they've got some money to put these lampposts, or at least researching putting these lampposts on the moon. And they are multifunctional, so they do things like they will generate electricity from solar, and with lots of cool gizmos and little things that extend. They can also be used for telecommunications. They can beam things across, and also they can beam that energy that they've actually captured back into things like lunar rovers and good stuff like that. And if you get lost on the moon, you can use the cameras to then find whoever's got lost. So that's kind of interesting. I have no idea actually how much they've been given to do these, but they look kind of neat, I guess. 100 meters tall and coming to a moon near you. This is a really good thing. So Sabine, if you don't follow Sabine on the YouTubes, there's a link down below. Please do. She is amazing. Don't know quite how she managed to put out the videos she does, but they are cracking. And there's this thing about Elon Musk's, the Neuralink, and trying to then save people's sight, or at least bring back sight, using Blindsight, new technology. Here's Sabine here explaining it. Now, this is not a new thing. I've been following this for probably 20 years or so, probably a little bit longer. But this is the first time a Neuralink is going directly onto the brain, into the optical cortex, so you don't really need the eye. Normally, they were trying to implant into the eye, and it therefore uses the eye as the input. In this case, it uses a camera, goes straight into optical cortex. This has been done before, but it usually needs kind of surgery and bits and bobs on the brain, and this is the first time it's been inside the skull. So there you go. It has 3,000 electrodes. However, there is also therefore a scientific paper that says, oh, hold on, Elon, it's not quite that simple. You don't just put more and more wires into the brain and get more and more vision. This is it trying to simulate what it might look like if you're trying to look at a cat, for instance. So there you go. So if you are holding out hope for this technology, do have a look at Sabine's video. It is amazing and it tells you all about it. She is great. This is a couple of years old now, but I came across this week, and it is the sound of COVID. So this is researchers at MIT. They've essentially turned the different parts of the protein and the spiky bits and the amino acids into music. So they've created a bass and a music and piano parts and a sort of underlying synthy bit as well. Now, why have they done this? There's been several studies that if you then convert quite complicated data into sound and you listen to the sound, then you can actually discover new things. There's quite a lot of cybersecurity that turn things like computer viruses into sound. And then when you listen to them, just normal people can then detect when a network is being hit by a virus just by listening to the sound of the network when it is music. So this is interesting in the same way, in that you might be able to find different places to try and inject different bits of virus stuff into COVID by listening to how the music changes. And by turning it into music, you can then listen for the different parts and search for those different parts to try and find interesting places. So as I say, it's a more intuitive way and possibly a faster way to look around viruses. There you go. In quantum news, I haven't done some quantum news in a while, people at Bath University have created a new fibre optic cable. They do a bunch of these anyway, by the way. This is not a fantastically new thing, but the new one is kind of cool. It is a new fibre optic cable for quantum communications. So without going too deeply into it, quantum communications is if you're sending light down a normal fiber optic cable, which is kind of cool. Now what you want to do is you want to send a single photon which is entangled down a fiber optic cable, and that gets a bit tricky. So this new cable can do quite a few things. It can actually generate the quantum entangled stuff, it can store them and do all sorts of neat things. So if you didn't realize, if the quantum internet is coming, you might need new cable coming into your house if you're going to do that. Obviously, that's not exactly how it'll work, but yeah, who knew? Putting air pockets essentially in fiber optic cables will allow you to generate quantum photons. Who thought? There you go. This is the Royal Mint. They announced a couple of years ago, actually, they were doing a deal with a company called DECEIT, and they were going to try and get all of the precious metals back out of e-waste. Turns out we actually generate 67 million tons of e-waste a year, and that is only increasing. So there was a partnership a couple of years ago, and now they've actually gone and built a factory in Wales. I think it's just kind of up from Cardiff if you're interested. So they're going to process 4,000 tons of waste a year, hopefully get all the precious metals out of it. There's gold, there's silver, there's palladium, all sorts of things in there as well. There you go. An actual factory in actual Wales doing actual mining of actual e-waste. And finally, this is Banana. This briefly became Steam's most played game with 890,000 concurrent players. So that's bonkers. Now, it's just a clicking game. So Cookie Clicker, back in the day, probably about, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, was a game where you just clicked a cookie. In this case, you just click a banana. That's all you do. And as you click the banana, the more bananas you click, or the more clicks, you can then buy upgrades. And therefore, if you go into the Steam wallet, and you can get those kind of microtransactions, and that's the game. You just click as much as you want, and that's pretty much it. However, it turns out that only 1/3, broadly 1/3, probably less actually, were actual humans. The other 2/3 were bots. They were just clicking this thing basically to make the game more popular, and therefore more people wanted to buy it, or at least do the microtransactions, and therefore the developers got extra money, and they were very open about all of this as well. So we're getting into a point now where even simple games like this, there's a lot of bots around. We know they're on social media, but they're playing your games as well. So Banana is a really good example of that. So there you go. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful in a way. I will try and get some of these boxes moved by next week, and I'll see you next week.